Hello, my name is Allison Carmen, and welcome to my podcast, 10 Minutes to Less Suffering. Today I want to talk to you about something I call the before and the after. I think many of us have had moments in our lives or experiences in our lives where everything totally changed in a moment. And sometimes things improve and our life changes and things really open up. But sometimes we have a loss. Sometimes in one moment, something we really care about is taken away from us. And even today I was watching the news and I saw that Britney Spears' conservatorship has ended. And I was thinking about that 13-year period where she didn't have a lot of freedom. And all of a sudden today is her after period where she's free again. She's free to live her life as an independent woman. So I'm sure today seems very different from yesterday or the day before. And sometimes it goes the other way. I also have been following the story about Alec Baldwin on his movie set Rust. If you think about it, there's an actual picture of him on the movie set. He was probably really enjoying himself and interested in the project. And then the next moment, he picked up a gun that he thought was not loaded and he accidentally shot somebody. And I think about how different his life must be in this after period for him. And I don't say this in a way to not pay respect for the woman who was killed or the director that was shot. But for some reason, I keep thinking about his before and after. And I even think about my own life. Sometimes I get really obsessed about the moment before my husband told me he was leaving. I remember sitting at the kitchen counter and I was just eating breakfast like every morning, having no idea what was about to come my way. And then my husband came home. He sat down to eat some food and he just blurted out he didn't want to be with me anymore. He wanted to be with other women. And in that moment, everything from before that I thought my life was blew up. And I remember so clearly after my husband left, I could not move past anything. I kept thinking about the life I had before. I kept wanting to go back to it. And if I could have, I would have. And I remember one day I was at work and there was some time to go into an empty office and clear my head. It was a very difficult time. And I remembered this interaction that I had with a fellow that I knew. And I believe I've told this story before on my podcast. This man had just lost his wife. And you could look in his eyes and it was like he had this shock look on his face. And they seemed to have had a loving marriage and a beautiful family. But he was no longer that happy man that I used to know. And I had just written The Gift of Maybe. And I was so into telling people about maybe and helping them with maybe. And I gave him my book. And I thought, well, this man is facing uncertain times, so my book is going to help him. And I remember he came back to me a few weeks later and he said to me, Allison, I hated your book. He said, my wife is gone and my life will never get better. And I remember in that moment, I felt crushed. I felt that I had crossed a line. I felt that maybe had its limits. And it took me a while to kind of let it go and realize that people have their own experiences. And for him, it wasn't something that would help him. But 6 months later, he came up to me and said, Allison, I really loved your book. He said, after a while, after my wife had passed, I realized that that life was not coming back to me, but here I was. And I used the idea of maybe. I thought to myself, maybe there's something left for me to still experience in this lifetime. And he says, today I have a girlfriend. It doesn't mean I love my girlfriend more than I love my wife, but it's a different life, a life worth living. And the same idea that day was what moved me forward. It wasn't this idea that I'm going to make my life better. I'll show him things are going to be amazing. And it wasn't hating my past. It wasn't blowing up every good moment I had in my marriage. It was saying, here I am in this moment, and maybe there's something left for me to experience. And those were the maybe words that really held me. And I honestly think it's really one of the most beautiful ways to move through a difficult experience. To not demand you feel happy, to not demand you get over something in a minute, but just to allow this idea, this opening, this idea of maybe, that here I am. I'm here on this earth, still breathing, still functioning. The future's unknown. And because it's unknown, I can't know that there aren't still things for me to experience. I can't know that life won't get better. I can't know that there won't be joy again. You can't know that your biggest pain and your biggest fear is forever. That's what's so beautiful about uncertainty. You look into the unknown and you realize that things could change and you can't imagine how it will change. There are possibilities out there, even if you can't imagine them, that will offer you something new. And I love these statements. Like I said, maybe it's good, maybe it'll get better, but you don't even need to go there. All you need to do is engage in the fact that you cannot be certain of anything. And it's enough to say, maybe there's something left for me to experience in this lifetime. And for me in that moment, it was so hopeful to know that I might not be doomed, that I might not be stuck, that life would keep changing and I would keep changing with life. That's huge. And eventually I had thoughts like, maybe I could accept this and still be okay, and know that there are many ways to be okay. We can't rewrite the past, and sometimes we can't get back what we lost, but that doesn't mean there's not a life to still live. And maybe always reminds me of that. It's a constant reminder every single day that you have no idea what the day will bring, what your life will bring. And let that openness give you hope that things will shift over time, that maybe you'll find meaning in what happened, you'll make peace with what happened, or sometimes we'll be able to live with what happened and still have happy, joyous, expansive times. For me, this has been everything. And I really hope that maybe gives you the same kind of comfort whatever you're going through. And if you're looking for an exercise to do, my friend didn't tell me how he got to that maybe statement. But I always say, write your biggest fear down. And I guess in that room, in that moment, I was thinking to myself, I cannot get through this. This is too painful. And maybe you're thinking, I'll never find another job, or my best life is behind me, or I'll never find a relationship that was as good as the one I had. I'll never find a job as good as the one I had. And then ask yourself, are you absolutely certain these thoughts are true? And the best thing about uncertainty is you can't be certain your fears are true. And then so what else is there? And in certain circumstances, you could say, maybe things will get better, or maybe I could find a way to be okay. And sometimes when you're going through a really hard time, you could say, maybe there's still something left for me to experience in this lifetime. So it doesn't push you out of pain. It doesn't push you towards better. It just allows you to be so present and feel joy when it's around, feel sacredness when it's around. And over time, you'll find you choose new things. You expand. That's what happened to me, and I know that's what will happen for you. No matter how bad your situation is today, you have maybe. And it can be that your life will get better than it was before, with new relationships and new opportunities and new businesses. Or you might just be in the present, soaking up everything that life gives you in the moment. And you don't need to compare it before and after, because you're living. You're living deeply with an open heart, and you're feeling what it is to be alive. So I wanted to discuss this today because sometimes we get stuck in the life we had before when it doesn't exist anymore. And sometimes life changes and wonderful things happen. And sometimes life changes and painful things happen. But it doesn't mean we can't survive the pain. And it doesn't mean we can't still find a life worth living. I think that's the most important thing I want you to take from this podcast today. There are many ways to find a life worth living. Thank you for listening to this podcast today. If you'd like to get in touch with me, you could email me at allison@allisoncarmen.com. If you'd like to buy my books, The Gift of Maybe or Year Without Men, they're available at all major bookstores and online retailers And if you like this podcast, you can subscribe and leave a comment.